this is Robert Klein, and this is The Art of Fighting. In Thailand, great fighters start off young. Watch child professional fighters. Is this child abuse or simply the brutal and merciless cost of being great? Next, we go to see a super cool Japanese samurai ninja weapons museum in Kawagoe, Japan. Find out where George Lucas got his inspiration for the entire Star Wars series. We're then off to Japan to meet Asashoryu, the Grandmaster Sumo and its ultimate bad boy, a Mongolian wrestler whose technical dominance and bad manners have made him the Genghis Khan of the sport. Children are being forced into the realities of commerce earlier and earlier, especially in poor countries. Due to the shortcomings of families, society, and a failing global economy, children are forced to do things that children probably shouldn't be doing. Many people will criticize the existence of exploited children, but say little about the larger economic system that makes them inevitable. Children doing Muay Thai are definitely motivated by money, but that alone does not explain everything. Muay Thai is a brutal and difficult martial art. To do it well, you must start young and train hard. Like ballerinas, these young kids must get their bodies and their minds to do things that normal people cannot do. They must learn to effectively deliver and absorb pain. These little kids are bona fide professional fighters. They get paid about $15 for each fight, which is what a Thai college graduate makes per day. They give this money to their family and are happy to do so. Their contribution is a source of pride. These two little guys are training. While Muay Thai fighting is brutal, the training is often a bit playful. These little guys seem happy and relaxed. One is 9 and the other is about 6. The 9-year-old dominates his little opponent, but the little guy is still enjoying himself. The 6-year-old's father, who is a notorious tough guy, watches on. He, more than most, understands well the life his son is entering. Frankly, these kids seem a lot happier than many kids I've met in the US or Japan. While life has not dealt them a particularly good hand, they're playing it as well as can be expected. Today, we're going to watch the 9-year-old fight. He has a level of focus and poise I have never seen in anyone so young. He is here to fight. There is little else on his mind. The other little guy is afraid, but he has been afraid before, and he will stand his ground. After all, he is a professional. These two kids do a rudimentary Y-crew to honor the gods and their gym and their trainers. Our rugged friend scores with his counter kick. He throws some elbows, but his opponent carefully slips them. Here our little friend eats a right, but seems unfazed. Our scared friend is no longer scared. He has survived his first round. Our friend in blue grabs his opponent's leg, but does so too close. He eats 3 solid punches for his mistake. The fight is over, and our 9-year-old friend won. The little guy in blue fought well, but not well enough. The next fight is between 2 other small kids who also show a lot of poise and technique. The little guy in red looks dainty, but actually fights quite well. He stays calm and deliberate. His effective front and side kicks dominate his opponent. He catches his opponent with a nice kick-punch combination. The guy in blue takes some hard shots, but keeps coming in. He has little defense against the red fighter's superior boxing skills. Finally, he gets hit harder than his young mind and body can handle. He is taken out. Fighting is a brutal act. That is its essence. No one is spared. Not even the young. These kids are doing what it takes to become truly great fighters. However, most of them will never reach that golden shore. Is the path to greatness just too brutal? Is the human sacrifice just too much? That is for you to decide. I'm your host, Robert Klein, and this is The Art of Fighting. Hi, this is Robert Klein, and this is The Art of Fighting. Maybe the only thing more interesting than Japanese martial arts are ancient Japanese weapons. Today you'll see firsthand the weapons of the samurai and the ninja as we take you on tour of a super interesting mini weapons museum in Kawagoe, Japan, a small city outside of Tokyo. You will see for yourself the incredible influence of Japanese samurai culture on George Lucas and the Star Wars series. Find out which weapons killed the most. Surprisingly, it's not the sword.
The first Star Wars was based on the Akira Kurosawa film Hidden Fortress, which was about a princess and 2 useless guys that helped her out. So Han Solo and the other guy. Yes. Here's a very Darth Vader's looking helmet. It's made in steel, unlike the other helmets, which were more lacquer. Once again, you see the very Darth Vader-ish shape. Here's a helmet with literally a gremlin head on top.
These armored faceplates are not only beautiful, they are also critical. Because of the effectiveness of samurai armor, archers traditionally shot at the face, and most generals were killed by face shots. As is often the case with Japanese weaponry, beauty and function are one.
Here's a tachi, which is a cavalry sword.
This is different than the katana in that it was made to be used by one hand and it was made to be used on horseback. So it's lighter, it has a better balance, and it's made to swing and slash. It's almost primarily a slashing weapon as opposed to the katana, which was both a stabbing and slashing weapon. Pretty blade.
I think it's been shaped a lot, reshaped a lot, been used.
So this one has dead men's spirit on it. These throwing weapons are collectively known as shuriken, and they were the close quarters projectiles of their age, kind of like a samurai version of the pistol. The longer shuriken were made to penetrate deeply and could kill, but required a high level of skill. The circular shuriken were primarily used to distract or fluster an opponent in order to escape and were relatively more simple to use. These taks, or koltrops, or tetsubushi, were also used to stop a pursuing man or horse. Okay, so this is a matchlock. See here? This hole right here is the pan, and this is where you put the charge. And this has an elegant little guard, which actually keeps the powder from getting wet in rain. The rope would ignite the charge of powder here, which would go in here and ignite the main charge of powder. Because they had armor, they actually held it more against their face than against their shoulder like a Western rifle. So when the recoil actually went back this way. It's very difficult. I don't quite get how they did this. And here's the rope that you use for your matchlock. So here you go. Rope, small powder flask, larger powder flask, ancient balls ranging from about 150 caliber to about 30 caliber, and the lead molding equipment, and of course the rifle itself. And this is the same matchlock rifles. This is also a matchlock rifle. Here our host teaches us about the different kinds of threats with a samurai sword. I just push open the blade with my thumb. Ora! Behave. So this is shark skin or stingray skin?
It's a shark skin.
Shark skin. Here's a simple guard. There are three purposes to the guard, basically. One is to protect yourself from an attack of another sword. Another is to keep your hands from sliding onto the blade and cutting your fingers off. And thirdly, it is to give your blade the kind of weight and balance you prefer. This slashing spear is called the naginata. It is probably my favorite weapon. It was originally the weapon of the warrior priests and later became the weapon of the samurai and was the preferred tool of the female fighter. It could easily dismount a rider and could be used to keep a stronger adversary at a distance. It was very effective at slashing legs. This naginata has not only a beautiful blade, but this exquisitely beautiful lacquered handle. In terms of lethalness, the bow was the most lethal apparently in Japanese weaponry, followed by the spear. The first spear we showed you was actually a stabbing spear, and this spear, as you can see by this elaborate curved blade, is a slashing spear. For a short while at least, the biggest killer was the matchlock gun, although not by a huge lead. In terms of accuracy, the matchlock or arquebus was worse than any bow. However, it was more powerful, and a gunman could carry far more ammunition than an archer could carry arrows. It also had a heavier psychological impact on enemy horses and men. By far, the biggest advantage of the gun was that it was easier to learn how to use. The biggest downside of the arquebus of the gun was they're unreliable, especially in wet weather. Their lit matches could easily be seen at night, and occasionally they exploded in the gunner's face. Japan's medieval history with the gun is rather interesting. They were introduced by the Portuguese in 1543. By 1553, there were more guns per capita in Japan than anywhere else in the world. By 1600, Japan made the best guns in the world. And about 5 years later, they were banned completely. not to really reappear in any form for about 250 years. It is one of the most unique examples of voluntarily renouncing a highly effective weapons technology in human history.
The dragon's claw.
I'm your host, Robert Klein, and this is The Art of Fighting. I'm Robert Klein, and this is The Art of Fighting. Today, we're outside one of the most famous sumo stadiums in the world, the Kokugikan. This is the heart and soul of sumo. Today you're going to meet the best of the best. You're going to see the Ozeki and the Yokozuna, who are the champions and grand champion of sumo. For those of you watching sumo for the first time, let me explain. Only the top 10% of sumo fighters actually get salaries. Of the highest caste, only the best become the Ozeki, and the best of those may become the Yokozuna. Currently, there are only 4 Ozeki and 1 Yokozuna out of 700 professional wrestlers. These fighters with black mawashi are unpaid wrestlers. They live in a sumo stable or heya and are only given a small stipend. These guys with white mawashi are called sekitori and they are paid. They too usually live in the sumo stable. Sumo is one of the oldest martial arts with sumo-like wrestling dating to the 8th century AD. However, its evolution into the form we know today began in the Edo period about 400 years ago. Basically, the goal is to either push the opponent out of the ring or to make them touch the ground with anything other than the soles of their feet. But before that, let me tell you a few interesting facts about sumo. According to legend, the Japanese royal court began when 2 gods fought by the Sea of Japan. One killed the other and founded the dynasty that can be traced to the Japanese royal family today. According to some authorities, sumo rose in the 17th century because of an influx of unemployed samurai or ronin. This was one of the few legitimate professions for samurai. Fact or fiction? I'm not sure. In this picture, ronin are committing a robbery, so maybe unemployment was an issue. Here you see a rikishi doing shiko. Professional sumo wrestlers do up to 500 of these a day. This face-slapping ritual is how fighters get themselves chosen by the victor. It is a form of showmanship. This fight is interesting because the better fighter, Hakuho, is defeated by a lesser fighter. According to our resident expert, Petr Matusz, if he had gripped the mawashi a few inches closer to the waist, he would have probably won. This Russian, Hakurozan, has a wrestling background like many other Russian and Eastern European fighters and tends to use pulling techniques rather than the pushing techniques preferred by sumo traditionalists. Kita Sakura, or Northern Cherry Blossom, is one of the oldest sekitori, or paid sumo fighters. he is well liked by the crowds because of his aggressive style in spite of his advanced age. This fighter being pushed is the legendary Asasoryu, the Mongolian responsible for what has been called the Mongol invasion. He is the only Yokozuna in sumo today and is clearly in a league of his own. However, his massive success has not been without controversy. He has been considered too rough, bad-tempered, uncontrollable, and worst of all, boastful for the genteel world of sumo. He was even expelled from a match for pulling his opponent's hair. This man Miyabiyama is given a particular public humiliation by Asasoryu for having had the audacity of beating him recently. Mongolia has its own traditional wrestling, and Asasoryu, whose father was a Mongolian champion, has apparently put this cultural background to good use in Japan. Asasoryu makes it very clear to this man of his place in the cosmos. This rolling exercise teaches you how to fall without injuring your head or wrist. Also, being able to resist touching the ground with your hand sometimes gives you that half second over your opponent. Asasoryu faces this young Bulgarian Oseki, Kodoshu, who he defeats in an almost half-hearted and whimsical manner to show his complete contempt for this fighter. This next opponent is a fellow Mongolian, and Asasoryu makes a dramatic point of beating him using far more elaborate techniques and aggression than is necessary. Asasoryu uses an unorthodox mawashi grab and a neck hold to take down this opponent. Thanks to his traditional Mongolian wrestling background, he has a much wider arsenal at his disposal than is commonly used in sumo. Asasoryu combats an undersized Mongolian named Amma, who is able to earn the respect of the crowd by holding off Asasoryu for a long time in spite of his vulnerable position. As you can see, Asasoryu is clearly in a league of his own. Chiyotaiki is famous for his thrusting attack sumo, but the Yokozuna stops him before he can begin, and the end is inevitable. Thank you for watching this show. I hope this has given you some insight into the complicated world of sumo and its unique mixture of militarism, entertainment, and religion. I'm your host, Robert Klein, and this is The Art of Fighting.